this workshop and all the other workshops that are hosted by, sponsored by the History with Grit project will expose participants to various tools that they can use to do community-based research projects for public figures in the area, or to do genealogical research specifically about family members. So it's sort of overlapping set of skills, but to illustrate how to use these tools, we're going to be focusing specifically on people in this region. And as is indicated by the slide, we're going to be taking a look at, we're going to be learning techniques that are going to help allow us to track down the founding generation of African Americans within Westchester County. All right, so now I do want to note, Jeff, just for formality's sake, just because we got to pay the bills, and in some of my discussions with our funders, I was asked to please make note of their sponsorships. I do want to, even though it's you and I, you know, the funding that we got for the program came from the American Council of Learned Societies and my college, Westchester Community College Foundation. And the college and the foundation have been very supportive with administrative assistance. So we want to thank them. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to give a brief overview of the History with Grit project. Then I'm going to highlight the specific historical background of the key figures who I've uncovered are going to be, have been part of John Edward Bruce's network. And so we'll say a few words about them. And then the bulk of our time we're going to spend going over how to access the assets that the Yonkers Public Library makes available to its card holders. Now I have to say, Jeff, I know you have a Westchester, Mount Vernon Library card. And I got the sense that some of these privileges may be tied to possession of a card by the particular library in question. So you might not be able to log in, because I had AJ try to log on with his Mount Vernon Library card last night, and he was unable to. So I think you might have to have a Yonkers library card to use these databases, but Mount Vernon may have similar databases, may have the exact same thing. I didn't take a look, but that should be a minor impediment. I'll go ahead and demo how to do the research. Okay.
I did apply online for the Yonkers card, but I haven't received it.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to.
Like, within the past 48 hours, or this was prior?
Yeah, maybe when I first saw this, I think it was early. Was it earlier this week or late last week?
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I think there was supposed to be some kind of confirming information that I haven't seen yet. Or maybe I got to recheck my email, but they're supposed to also they're supposed to snail mail a card.
Okay.
Which I haven't seen yet.
We're recording this, so what I'll do, Jeff, is I'm going to post it to our YouTube channel, and then I'll be sure to send you the link. You can take a look at it after you get your library card and use it as guided instruction on how to do the research, all right, in case you don't remember. So we're going to take a look at several resources that the library makes available to library card holders. They include, as indicated in the slide, Ancestry Heritage's portal, which will give us access to census records, government records that people typically file over the course of their lifetime, marriage certificates, stuff like that. And then maybe even directories for that indicate where a person lived in a particular city. So as well as the New York Times database and newspaper.com. And I just realized last night that these are available. So in addition, I'm also going to demonstrate how to use some open source databases that can be used to supplement the the information that we get, and increase our likelihood that we're going to be able to actually track down the people that we're looking for. If you want, though we're looking at public figures, Jeff, if you were interested in doing genealogical research about your own family, you could use these same techniques, and you might uncover a lot of useful information. All right. So, and then for about a half hour. Maybe we'll do something together. Maybe you'll tell me some terms. We'll search together since you don't have access to the database just yet. And then, for half hour, if you have any questions, Jeff, we'll close out with questions. Okay.
Cool.
So, I guess I covered all of that. Now, so I've already discussed the assets that we're going to use. Let me step back and just say a word about the History with Grit project. Brother Jeff, you know about the project because you've been intimately involved from the beginning. For any audience members who may view this video after the session is over, I want to take the opportunity to introduce my good friend and comrade, Jeff Monroe. Jeff and I have been collaborating together for at least about 15 years or so on various civic projects, largely centered in the city of Mount Vernon. Jeff is, by training, is a professional videographer, and he has been kind enough to volunteer a lot of his time over the past decade or more to provide videographic services for a number of things that we've done, including our Decipher series out in the city of Yonkers, out in the city of Mount Vernon, which we partnered with on the Mount Vernon Library, that featured artists, authors, scholars, and Jeff was nice enough to record it. Anyone who's interested in taking a look at those sessions, you can also find them at our YouTube channel. For the History with Grit project, we have a number of deliverables that we are going to be producing in return for the seed grant that we obtained. The main thing is a half-hour pilot documentary on the life of John Edward Bruce, also known as John Edward Grit Bruce, a famed African-American figure who has fallen into obscurity, and a number of us, thanks to my partner, Harold McCoy II, who's not here with us, but who's also been a mainstay in many of these projects, discovered. So he was discovered over in the Oakland Cemetery, and we started working on this project about a year or two ago. In addition to the documentary, we're also going to be creating a database of archival records about Black history that will be turned over and managed by the Yonkers Public Library, as well as the Yonkers Historical Society. We're fortunate enough to have the contributions from a number of independent historians who have followed Bruce's model, and between us, we've amassed several hundred articles already, in addition to texts that Bruce produced, pictures that are left over from his time in Yonkers, where he undertook a number of these activities. We also hope to produce an anthology of unpublished writings by Bruce, because as part of our background research, we got to read a lot of the articles that Bruce wrote as a journalist and as a famed Pan-Africanist thinker. And then finally, everyone, we also hope to produce a graphic novel. We're doing this in partnership with a number of agencies, including, as I mentioned before, the Yonkers Public Library, the Yonkers Historical Society, and Westchester Community College. And students from Westchester who are enrolled in their technical programs are going to be providing a lot of the assistance behind the scenes in order to produce these various deliverables that we're going to be making available to the public. So I guess that's enough by way of introduction. Now, so let us turn to the key figures who are at the center of this documentary project. The main figure, the iconic figure, is John Edward Bruce, as well as a number of prominent local leaders who coalesced around Bruce and the shared civic projects that they undertook at the beginning of the 20th century. For today's session, the group that we're going to be focusing on is the Men's Sunday Club. And the Men's Sunday Club was a nationwide effort on the part of developing African American communities that were located in cities that began to expand as Black people migrated from the South to the North and had to deal with a number of challenges as they sought to resettle, relocate. Of course, those challenges would include racial discrimination that has haunted African Americans no matter where they found themselves on American soil. But beyond that, just the adopting to the rigors of urban life with the change in the institutional makeup of the cities in which they live, changes in economic opportunities as many transition from agricultural occupations that they were likely to focus on in the South, especially if they lived in the agricultural regions where so many African Americans were concentrated, as well as educational challenges as African Americans sought to recover a suppressed history that had, and often distorted, disparaged history that had made it very difficult for many of us to center ourselves around a positive vision that would fortify us for the challenges that we were going to confront. So the Men's Sunday Club sought to address all of those challenges by offering a regular weekly offerings of intellectual, fair discussion, stimulation, largely centered in churches that were the institutional cornerstone of so many African American communities. And that was true in the case of the growing African American community that began to pop up in Yonkers, Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, and other cities throughout Westchester County. In looking at the activities of the Sunday Men's Club, we're going to focus our attention as we do our search, not just on the formal title of the organization, which was the Men's Sunday Club of Yonkers, but we're also going to be looking at a number of key figures who I came to find out, including Francis James Moultrie, commonly referred to as F.J. Moultrie, who I discovered while doing background research from a number of resources that that are available. In addition to Moultrie, there are about maybe a dozen or so other members of the Sunday Club who undertook these activities in conjunction with and under the leadership of John Edward Bruce. As I already said, Bruce was a famed journalist who was a central figure in the establishment of many African American newspapers. He was not only a writer, not only an editor, but he was also a publisher of many newspapers. And when he arrived in the city of Yonkers in about 1903, he quickly devoted his journalistic talents to trying to help the growing Black community here in Westchester better understand the forces, events, persons that they would have to come to terms with in order to successfully adopt to life here in Yonkers. There's a couple of reasons why we're going to start here. For one, we got a rich historical record that I'll share with you in a minute that we can draw on. And this will connect Bruce to the broader set of local and national forces that were part of the network of activists and organizers who spearheaded the Sundays Club, the Men's Sunday Club. I will note, although we're going to focus on the activities of the Men's Sunday Club in Yonkers, background readings that I've done indicate that there were Men's Sundays clubs. This was a very popular kind of movement, and there were Men's Sundays clubs in large cities like Chicago, Savannah, Georgia, just to name two others that readily come to mind for me. Okay. Any questions, comments, Brother Jeff? Or should I just move forward? Okay. So, in order to do this research, everyone, I want to now shift our attention. Now we've got a sort of background of what we're going to be researching. I want to introduce you guys to the actual resources that the library has available and quickly review the procedures for logging in. So if you go to the library's main page, which you'll find at www.ypl.org. Take you to the main page, and this is the what you'll find. And if you click the navigation bar, the research link, research and learn link on the navigation bar, it'll bring up a pop-up window that you see here titled Digital Resources. Can you see it clearly, Brother Jeff? I can't hear you, Jeff. And you want me to tell
Sorry.
that I can't hear you still, man?
You still don't hear me?
Oh, I hear you now, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm getting used to these progressives, so.
Okay. I'll switch over to the actual live web in a few minutes. All right, and we'll run through it because I gotta log in. So you're gonna click the research and learn, and then you'll see this pop-up window for digital resources. And if you just click all digital resources, it'll bring you to the page that lists all of the digital resources that the library has available. As I said, there are an immense wealth of resources that are available that you could draw on. We're going to be looking at the resources that are made available through Ancestry.com, one of the nation's largest genealogical databases. And you can see that here at the top, there's a link, but this is not the link that we're going to use. This particular version of Ancestry.com you can only access at the library itself, so you'd have to go into the library to use it. But the library does Ancestry does have a licensed version that you can access remotely from home, the convenience of your home, from your own desktop computer, your laptop computer. So to get to it, what you'll do is you'll scroll to the bottom of the page, and that's actually what we see here. And if you go to the very bottom, you'll see a number of pages that comprise this section of the library's website. And if you click the number 2, it will bring you to the following pop-up page. I'm sorry, the next page, page 2. And if you scroll halfway down, you'll see on the right-hand side the link that we need to click in order to start our research, Heritage Quest Online. All right, as I said, Heritage Quest Online offers the researcher the ability to gain access to many of the records that Ancestry makes available in its database. That includes census records, birth and death certificates, marriage certificates, passenger rosters, military records, directories from cities, all of which can be used in combination to get a better sense of the lives and activities of the figures that one may be interested in researching. So now, once you click that, you're going to come to this page, which is the actual Heritage Quest Online platform. And you can see that the main search fields that we're going to be using in order to try to track down these figures. Now, if you look at the main search fields, this is a rather straightforward process, Brother Jeff. It's nothing that would come as a mystery to anyone. Really, to do these searches, the key things that you need is you need the person's name and maybe some additional information that's going to allow you to home in on that particular figure, because as we know, there are going to be many people over the course of history, U.S. history, who share the same name. So you'd have the person's first name, middle name, if you're lucky, or middle initial, their last name, and then maybe some additional information about where they lived, where they were born, or either lived, and the year that they were born. Before I actually demonstrate how to do this, I want to note, well, if you go ahead, somehow, okay, I'm sorry, I got it in the wrong order, Brother Jeff. So I made a mistake here, actually. So, I'm sorry, when you click the Heritage link, the first thing that pops up, the next screen that you're brought to is the login screen. So this is the login screen that we're looking at right now. And if you have a valid library card, all you need to do is enter your barcode number, which will appear on the back of your library card or on the back of the little library key fob. If you're like me, I tend to, they give you an option of the card proper or the little fob. This is the fob that the custom-made fob that the library put together for the year-long celebration of the 50th anniversary of hip hop that was sponsored by my good friend collaborator, Harold McCoy II, featured a lot of people. And Brother Jeff, for some reason, I feel like you were there and you were a participant. You supported us with some of your videographic services, if I'm not mistaken. Just shake your head. Yes, take full credit, Brother Jeff. We'll figure that part out behind the scenes. All right. Don't worry about it. So for those of you who have a valid library card, you just enter your card number in, and then this is the screen that will bring up for you. All right. So before we actually do some searches, everybody, I want to note that firstly, that before you do the searches, you might want to avail yourself of some open source material that can allow you to get as much information as possible so that when you use the online databases, you're able to fill in as many fields and likely to successfully come up with a list of the information that you're looking for about the figure that you're researching. Now, in order to prepare for this research, before I even got to the Heritage Quest, I did some background research, which is consistent with my training. Me and Brother Jeff have been friends for a long time, and Brother Jeff knows that I completed my doctorate in sociology maybe about a decade or so ago. And in the course of so doing, I became acquainted with many of the research techniques that are recommended. First recommendation that all good scholars are going to make is see what publications have been produced already about figures that you have in mind. Or if you're going to have a location in mind, maybe you'll do some background research about the location. So there have been 2 biographies that have been written on John Edward Bruce, and I have them both listed here. The one at the top is let's start with the one at the bottom by Ralph L. Crowder, John Edward Bruce, politician, journalist, and self-trained historian of the African diaspora, which I consulted. It reviews the entirety of Bruce's life from his birth in Piscataway, Maryland in 1856 until his death in 1924, and all of the important highlights, including his career that's indicated from the subtitle, including his work as a Republican Party activist, his pioneering work as a journalist, and also his work as an independent historian who I think inspired a number of figures, probably most important for us, his mentee, Arthur Schomburg, who of course everyone knows went on to establish the Schomburg Library. In 1911, while Bruce was here in the city of Yonkers, he and Schomburg established the forerunner to the Schomburg Center, the Negro Society for Historical Research. The second biography that I consulted that gave me clues on important information about the organizations that Bruce was a part of, not only the Negro Society for Historical Research, the Men's Sunday Club, but others like the Loyal Order, a fraternal organization, the Loyal Order of Sons of Africa, if I'm not mistaken, and a couple of others. So the second one that I consulted is the biography by William Sorrell entitled The Black Nationalist Writings of John Edward Grit Bruce. Grit was his nickname. And I'm especially honored to note that Dr. Sorrell, who is a professor emeritus of history at Lehman College, is a member of the project and has been working with us on this for more than a year from the very inception, and his scholarship, insights, knowledge has been invaluable to whatever kind of successes we've enjoyed. In addition to those sources, everyone, I strongly recommend that when you're doing this type of research, you do keyword searches, either the person's name or key cities in the other sources that I have listed here. They could be Google Books, Open Library, and then the YPL's New York Times database and the newspaper.com database. Let me, I didn't really appreciate, let me step back. Oftentimes you'll hear academics frown on the use of sort of open-ended searches on the web for fear that students or amateur researchers might, stumble upon bad information that's very reliable. And while I urge everyone to exercise caution when selecting sources and make sure that they're credible, I also want you to know that I really came to appreciate the importance of doing these kind of background searches when I was doing some genealogical research on my family. And I looked up my dad's name one day, Bobby Baskerville, and I don't know if I could come up with it now. Let me try again. And what I found was a picture of my dad and Bo Diddley, which here it goes right here, Brother Jeff. Look, there's my dad and Bo Diddley. My dad was a professional musician for about 25 years or more. And one day I just put his name in and that popped up. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. And then I went to Google Books, which is an open source compendium of so many books that have been scanned by Google as part of the activities I know Brother Jeff is going to be critical of. We've discussed many a times, as are so many creatives who are fearful that they're not going to be compensated for their work. But, those misgivings notwithstanding, one day I went in and did a search for my mother's name, a very unique name, Hyla Parker, thinking I wouldn't find anything. And would you believe it? Would you believe this, everyone? This is a picture of my mother when she was a 3-year-old girl that was featured in Life magazine, because my grandmother, when she arrived in Westchester County in the 1950s, worked as a domestic before she went off to and served in the house of the president of Lawrence College. And my mom picture was taken when they had a party for their daughter. My mom was close with her daughter. They liked my grandmother. And this was before my grandmother went off to get her degree from the College of New Rochelle and became a professional social worker. So there's good reason why, everyone, to actually do these seemingly random searches, thinking that they are not likely to yield anything. They can provide valuable background information. All right. So let me make sure I've covered everything I want to say in my slide. Here. So again, this is the list of figures. So in addition to, now you'll notice what I have here, everyone, is a roster of figures that were founding members of the Men's Sunday Club. And this is just one of several important documents that I've uncovered while doing background research on Bruce and on the network of Black leaders from the late 19th century, early 20th century that he was a part of. And I discovered this by doing a quick search at another open source material, and that is another open source item, and that is the Westchester County archives. And I have the Westchester County archives up here somewhere. Where are you, Westchester County archives? And I don't see you. Here we go. So if you want everyone, so the Westchester County Archives has an online database that you could search by putting in the name of a person or the organization, which is what I did in order to find information about the officers of the Men's Sunday Club. I will also note that the Westchester County Historical Society has an online database that you can use. And I was looking there last night. Here you can see, everyone, you may not notice, but there's an entry for Francis J. Moultrie, and there's some vertical files there. And I'm going to go and look at those at some point. Go to the archives. We'll be doing a workshop there that's open to anyone. So students from WCC will attend, but any member of the public who wants to come, you just let me know, let Harold know. The other organizers will arrange for you guys to come up and you can take a look, help us out. So those are two sources that are available. In addition, everyone, there are other sources that are available, especially exciting. And here I'll say the Schaumburg Library has online resources that you could search for either the name of the name of a person or organization, and you might come up with a number of hits. And to give you an example, Jeff, of how fortuitous that search might be, in preparing my PowerPoint presentation today, I looked for Francis J. Moultrie in the digital the online database, and what do you know? This is his home from 1908, and that's most likely to be Moultrie right there. If I had to take a guess, it might be his wife or an associate. And let me go back to my PowerPoint. So those are the reasons you should look, everyone. And to just round it out, here's the actual before and after picture. This is what, for some reason, was deposited in Schaumburg's collection, probably because Moultrie was a very successful entrepreneur. He was a caterer, a restaurant owner, as well as a member of many of the organizations that Bruce was a part of and was a benefactor to them. His life is an example of the way that successful African Americans who have a sense of responsibility can use their success to not only improve their own personal lives, but also to help to improve the lives of the community as a whole. And I can tell you from some of the research that I've done, I know that he, gave money to support, to provide financial support for a lot of these endeavors. So that's kind of, a quick, by way of background, everyone, how you can be sure that you have adequate information that you can use in order to do a search of these online sources. What I want to do now is just walk you guys through how to do research on the library's website. And let me come back here. And so here we are. So here we are. We've hit the digital resource button, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and we've gone to page 2. And now we've scrolled down, and we will click the Heritage Quest. Click the View Source button. I'm going to click it again. Now I'm going to enter my card number. It's already there. Don't you guys pay any attention to it? Oh, it's not working. Let me do it again, Brother Jeff. Let's see. Come on, library card. Here we go. I really almost know this number by heart. I got it. Put it a few times and then should come up. And no, even though I'm looking at it. Okay. 210. Come on. So, All right, so now we've got this information. Now, if we wanted to, my interest, I've done a lot of research about John Edward Bruce, not only from reading the biographies and other available information, but I've also done searches in the database. So I'm personally not going to do any searches for Bruce. Instead, what I want to do is demonstrate how to do searches by looking at the other figure that I'm especially interested in, Francis Moultrie, because I want to recreate the networks. So if I wanted to, everyone, I could just put his name in, Moultrie, and hit return. I will point out that sometimes the spelling of people's names may not have been recorded correctly. If you suspect that the person's last name may not be correct, you can always click the button. The default mode is a kind of fuzzy search. If you know that it's exact, you can hit exact, and it'll just eliminate the number of turns. And here we go. And I'm just going to click search. Happens. And so we already see, everyone, that we've got a number of promising hits. Immediately displayed are records from the city directory for Yonkers from the opening decades of the 20th century that lists Francis Moultrie. We're almost certain this is the right person. We've got the correct name, we've got the correct location, and we've got the correct time period. So it's pretty good indication that this is the information that we're looking for. In addition, everyone, we can simplify the search process and home in on items that we want by actually clicking the filters on the left-hand side. And just to illustrate, everyone, I have not yet looked at any census records for Moultrie. So if we click it, we can see some census records here. And you can see, everyone, there are a lot of different Moultries across the country for a lot of different periods of time. That's okay. You know, with a little bit of determination, maybe some extra sources, we can figure out what those census records actually are record information about the figure that we're interested in, our Francis J. Moultrie. We also have marriage and death certificates, and obviously this is wrong. These are the wrong time periods. So again, everyone, it should be clear. Even though our first set of returns gives us reason to believe that we're on the right track to tracking down Francis Moultrie, we're likely to increase this if we have more background information about him. And the way that we can get that background information is actually looking at some of the additional resources that the library makes available. So in addition to Heritage Quest, the library also has available several other important newspapers that we want to draw on. Here's ProQuest, which has newspaper content. Instead of using ProQuest, what I am instead going to do, we could use the New York Times digital collection. I'll come back to that in a minute. I did do a search that turned up some interesting records. But the one that I want to use is, maybe I did want to use this one. Let's see. Didn't think it was ProQuest, but maybe it is ProQuest. Go back, look carefully. Let me make sure, Brother Jeff. I cannot find it. The library has, I've already opened it up, everyone. I think it's still active. So one of the databases that the library makes available is newspapers.com. And newspapers.com. I'm just going to go all the way out to the beginning. And so this would be the opening page of newspapers.com. And I'm going to do a search of Moultrie's name and the time period that I'm interested in and see if I could get additional information. Since I already did this last night, I know that there is additional information, and a key piece of information that will always is likely to provide useful leads is a person's obituary. Moultrie was a public figure, so as it turns out, he had a lengthy obituary. But for those who are interested in doing genealogical research about their families, you could actually put in the name of your family member, and even if they weren't world renowned, like Bruce, or even a local public figure like Moultrie, maybe your family members ran a obituary to honor the passing of their loved one, and there'll be useful information. In the case of Moultrie, and I'll just increase this in size. Let me close this. I'll make it a little larger so everyone can see it. Can you see that, Brother Jeff? But you can see it's providing us with useful information that tells us his address. He died at 140 Warburton Avenue. And in fact, 140 Warburton is, as I said before, is this picture here. The picture that I showed you guys from my slides earlier. I don't know what I just did with it, so I'm not going to worry about it. There it goes. So that's 140 Warburton. It'll tell you his city of birth and the year. So we learned from this that he was born in Charleston, South Carolina. And since I read the article last night, I could tell you that it also tells you firstly gives a very nice and compelling narrative summary of his life. He left Charleston, Carolina with $200 in his pocket. That was equivalent, I think, to with $10 in his pocket. That was equivalent to about $300 and some dollars today. He paid $8 of that for transportation. He had $2 left over, and this says that he survived off of 50 cents today.
I'm in a Zoom. Is it immediately?
No.
All right.
You all right, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm at work, so
we're just about finished.
okay.
And so it tells us a couple of other additional details about his life. It tells us who he married. So his wife's name, according to the article, is Fanny Alston. And indeed, if we look up some of his genealogical records, we find that oftentimes mention of is made of Fanny Moultrie as being his wife. So that's Alston is her maiden name. It also tells you something about his work history. It tells you some of his employers. One is B.F. Washburn, a hardware store. Then he works as with the firm Acker, Edgar and Company. And then it tells you in 1878, he opens up a restaurant and catering establishment. It tells you where it's located. And in one instance, it gives the actual address. So if we just from this one article alone, we've gathered a wealth of additional information that we can now use to add to our search. And I'm just going to go back a couple of times and just start from the beginning. I'm going to put Francis Moultrie. And now I'm going to add the additional information that we uncovered through our search of newspaper.com. He was born in Charleston, South Carolina. And he was born according to the obituary in 1842. If we wanted to, we could say it's an estimate, so that'll get a couple of years. We could add extra information if we wanted to. Everyone, you could see that we could add information about the person's significant relatives, probably a space for a spouse. And we're going to add, what was her name? Fanny and Alston. And now we're going to do search. And let's see what we come up with. And we've got one very narrow return. Now we went from one extreme to the other. A lot of records to almost none. And what that means is that we got to sort of play around with the keyword search, everyone. But let me try it again. Maybe I'll put the year he was born. See what happens. 1842. And do another search, and let's see what records we come up with. And you can see a couple of records here. We've got 3 in our census. Maybe we've been lucky. And this is in Georgia, so perhaps not. He's in South Carolina. These are all Francis Moultries who are listed as living in states other than South Carolina, but it could be the case. Now, Brother Jeff, question for you. Why might we have not found his records, census records for his birth in South Carolina, 1842? Very important.
Transition from enslavement to freedom.
Absolutely. So as many of our viewers will recall, during the period of the antebellum period, when large numbers, the overwhelming majority of African Americans were enslaved, any records about pertaining to them probably omitted their last name. So it's a possibility, I don't know. It could be that Moultrie was born into an enslaved family, and maybe we don't have any records about his life before 1842. He's very specific, though, about his birthday, because I think it's August 22nd, 1842, actually. So I'm surprised he would be that specific if he was born enslaved, because oftentimes this information is lost to historical memory, but further research would help us determine. It could be the case, though. Look, he just might have been missed, right? How will we know if this is the Moultrie that we are looking for? We're not going to know unless we just simply take a closer look at the record. And amongst the kind of information that you'll find in census records that can provide helpful clues, and we can see it here, we know this is not our Francis. Oftentimes, it's going to tell you the person's gender. It'll tell you the person's race as well as additional information as helpful. The members of the household. It could be that we'll know the person's name of the person's parents, maybe a sibling, or if they're the marriage age, the person's wife, or even maybe their children. If we find those things and it corroborates information that we got from other records, it's reason to believe that this is the right figure that we have in mind. But we see this isn't the person that the Francis Moultrie that we're looking for. Let's go back and see if perhaps it's another person. And probably not. Something tells me, well, it's not. It's a different spelling, but we'll take a look. Okay, there's the rest of our information. So, got a summary. That's the same person. It's not our Francis. We've only got one more chance from our census records. And if I had to take a guess, it's probably the same lady. So, based on the information that we input, we were not able to initially find any information about Moultrie in the census records. I should say, now that I think about it, how can we improve our search? There's an additional piece of information that we could include. We could include information about his middle name. So we could put his name, his full name is Francis James Moultrie. So let's put that in and see if we come up with something. We'll put in his birth year again, 1842. And let's just do a search. And here we have something from Francis James, and we've got a lot more hits. And hey, what do you know, Brother Jeff? Live. This wasn't planned, Jeff. Actual eureka moment. Join with me, Brother Jeff, in saying eureka. We appear to have found one of his census records. And so now what we're going to do, we're going to click it, take a closer look. This is from 1870. It says that he is about 40, but you want me to tell what, Brother Jeff? It may be not our guy. Now, this says that he's white. And ordinarily, we would take that at face value, right? That the census recorder hasn't, in fact, accurately recorded the race of the person. But we need to exercise caution for several reasons. You want to tell our viewers why, Jeff? We should be cautious?
Some of us are passing.
Some of us are passing, absolutely. We know that there was a lot of racial intermixture during the antebellum slavery, the overwhelming majority, because white slave masters were taking advantage of their position of power and authority and raping enslaved Black women. During a prior period, going back to the earliest colonial days and even continuing on, however, there were a smaller number of African Americans who might have had mixed parentage because the parents truly loved one another, were attracted to one another, might not have been a question of a violent rape. So it could be that. So some might be passing, but census recorders also might have made an assessment based on the visual cues that they saw. And if it was an especially fair-skinned African American, they might have just assumed the person was white and kept it moving and not actually asked them. It could have been the case that if it was a fair-skinned African American, just depending on, whether they were embraced their ancestry and weren't trying to pass, maybe they were honest about it. I don't really know. But let's see if we scroll through if there are any others that we could find. We don't yet to see anything having to do with the cities that we know. I don't know. Here's one. Let's just see what comes up, Brother Jeff, in the last closing minutes. Here we have a Black male. He's a farmer. It's Jim, not James, but it's got a lot of interesting information that we're going to track down, after I get off the line and see if this is the guy that we're looking for. And since we scrolled through, I want to just point out some additional information that the census records contain and why they're so valuable. In addition to race and gender, you can also see that the census, some of the census records will contain information about whether or not a person could read or write. This is important information just to get a sense of who a person is and the struggles that they confronted. Whether or not they had real estate. This is especially important because real estate, property, is the capital that's especially valued during this time period, as opposed to education, which has become especially important today. And so if you have property, that would have given you greater flexibility in trying to meet the economic challenges of the time than in the past. And this also gives us a sense of a person's ultimate class position, the lifestyle that they lived. So those are additional pieces of information. And maybe this isn't our figure because we could see that the person's name here is Betsy. It's just about 3 o'clock. I know it's been very quick, Brother Jeff, but I hope we've given the viewers who might look at the recording later on when we make it available some interesting insights about how to do the research. We do have another half hour left if we want to, if we want to do some research, Brother Jeff. I'm not sure if you want me to do some searches for you. Or I do know that you also may have to take care of business. I know you are on your lunch break. You let me know, Brother Jeff. If you want, I could do some searches, family members, other figures, or, we could explore. Maybe you noticed some records before that we saw that we would have been worth taking a look at. You let me know, or else we can bring it to conclusion.
Well, I appreciate the walkthrough. I think this is very helpful and interesting. I think I'm gonna look later when I actually I actually just was looking at some information, I think it was yesterday,
Mm,
on an old railroad, a railroad, some of the fundamental pathways to the metro, what we call the MTA today,
right.
and the what I think they call the Westchester Boston New York Railroad, which still remains in part existent on the number 5 line in the Bronx, was an area that went through what was then Lower Westchester
Mm,
and on to Boston and Connecticut, I believe. But the area it went through,
mm,
I believe, came in some proximity to St. Paul's Church,
okay.
where Saint what was it? Common Sense was read preceding the
Mm,
American
mm,
Revolution. It's a national parks territory now, but that church actually has buried it had buried African soldiers of the
right.
revolutionary or the pre I believe it was the revolutionary era. So I was curious about the presence of African population in Lower Westchester around
Mm,
that area based on some of those previously released data. So some of it also relates to something I'd read from Dr. Spruill. You're familiar with
mm.
Mount
Yes,
Vernon historian Dr. Spruill. So
yes.
he had written a book that spoke about some of that same African presence that was on a farm close to that area as well, close, or at least according to what he wrote. It didn't give any specific relationship in distance, but it said that there was an African, a formerly enslaved African um, who resided on his own land within line of sight of St. Paul's Church.
Hmm.
So there may have been an African presence in that area with landholding rights. Um, so I'm still curious about the African presence in Westchester for that specific reason, at least following those cues. So I got to get the names though of the people that I'm thinking of. I don't have them immediately.
Right. Well, it's interesting that you should mention the African American presence during the American Revolutionary era because, as you know, Jeff, it's 250th birthday, the 250th anniversary of the founding of the nation, and it's touching off major retrospectives. Um, I know that in Dr. Sproul and one of his early students, our mutual friend, Dr. Tyreen Wright, have done research in there. Maybe, Brother Jeff, since we know something about the records up at the Westchester County Archives and the Historical Society, maybe, there'll be an opportunity to do some additional research up there. Of course, Brother Jeff, we welcome your presence. If you want to come up one day when we're up there and take a look to see what kind of property records are available, because that might be the place that has the only extant records from that time. Not a lot of newspapers have survived, as you know, but there may be other stuff. So I'd be
Mm.
curious to see.
Yeah, that'd be a good field trip.
Yes, yes. And yeah, so I will be sure to let you know, Brother Jeff, and our viewers know by posting an announcement at the Grit by Bit finding the founders of Black Westchester page that we put together to support the project. We're going to keep our followers supporters apprised of progress that we're making on the project as a whole, including any interesting research findings, so everyone can keep an eye out for it. Um, anything else, Brother Jeff?
No, I appreciate it. I wish I could really spend some time digging into the stuff, but I know some of it's deep into some other material I had at home with Dr. Sproul's books.
Right, right. Um, yes, I've thumbed through Dr. Sproul's books myself, and actually, that would be one of the books on local history that we really should consult if we're going to attempt to do some sort of reconstruction of the life of African Americans in Westchester County during an earlier period. He's uncovered a lot of interesting findings. I'm sure many of them have I've incorporated into my own subsequent research. So that would be an interesting source of information as well. So yeah, if again, I'll be sure to keep everyone apprised of the additional activities that we'll undertake, including the visit up to the county archives. That's going to be sometime next year. I'm sitting down for a video conference in the next week or two to hammer out all of the details. And so I'll let everyone know when that becomes available, as long as other developments. If there are no other comments, questions, Brother Jeff, I'm going to bring today's session to a close, only because, as you know, as my good friend, I can be a bit loquacious. I will not shut up.
That was helpful. Thank you very much.
All right, Jeff, listen, man, I want to thank you especially, good brother, for taking the time to join me. You know, it's an encouragement to have people take an interest in the work that we do, and you've been a steadfast friend and collaborate over the years, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, man.
Well, we appreciate your contributions, Professor Baskerville. You keep it up yourself.
Absolutely, good brother. With the support and dialogue with brothers like yourself, brothers and sisters like yourself, I'm going to be sure to. By the way, Brother Jeff, I spoke to Brother Abishai, Baba Abishai, the other day. I'll be participating in the Kwanzaa celebration in the city of Mount Vernon that's coming up. I'm sure you're going to be there. We'll, between us and others, we'll be sure to keep people apprised of that development, the specifics. All right.
Nice.
On that note,
good to know.
I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. I'll make this available. And you guys can communicate with me via our Facebook page if you want more information. Until next time, Brother Jeff. So before we close out, let me note that we'll do similar workshops going over the same research techniques, maybe adding a few others, but focusing on other key organizations, individuals that were a part of Bruce's network. Those would include the Negro Society for Historical Research, which he founded in 1911, the forerunner to the Schomburg Society. The New Rochelle Cooperative Business League, which was a business advocacy organization that he established with others under the inspiration of Booker T. Washington's call for a program of self-help that looked at focus on the development of Black businesses. And then lastly, we'll also take a look at Bruce's activities, political activities in Westchester County by focusing on the Westchester Negro Republican Club, something like that, that had a lot of prominent members. All right, so stay tuned for that in the weeks ahead, everybody, weeks and months ahead. Again, thank you so much. Brother Jeff, I will see you out in the field. Good brother. All right. We'll follow up soon.
Thanks again, Rob.
All right. Thanks again, Jeff.
All right. Take care.
All right.